The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Some people told Jesus about the Galileans whose blood Pilate had mingled with the blood of their sacrifices. Jesus said to them in reply, "Do you think that because these Galileans suffered in this way, they were greater sinners than all other Galileans? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will perish as they did. Or those 18 people who were killed when the tower at Siloam fell on them. Do you think they were more guilty than everyone else who lived in Jerusalem? By no means. But I tell you, if you do not repent, you will perish as they did." And he told them this parable. There once was a person who had a fig tree planted in his orchard. And when he came in search of fruit on it but found none, he said to the gardener, "For 3 years now I have come in search of fruit on this fig tree but have found none. So cut it down. Why should it exhaust the soil?" He said to him in reply, "Sir, leave it for this year also, and I shall cultivate the ground around it and fertilize it. It may bear fruit in the future. If not, you can cut it down." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Teilhard de Chardin. O Jesus, I desire to make the ever-present threat of damnation a part of my habitual and practical vision of the world, not in order to fear you, but in order to become more intensely yours. As in so many other gospel parishes, we are confronted with harsh realities which we would prefer to forget about, and then led to encouragement and hope. Now as then, unspeakable tragedies continue to occur. Now as then, the news cycle moves on until the next invasion, earthquake, building collapse, suicide bombing, mass shooting, the next atrocity of war or genocide. Those who survive these things struggle with trauma, trying to go on in the face of senseless, catastrophic loss. Traumatized children can't focus in school. Returning veterans become addicted, homeless, suicidal. How much of this can we take in? We tend to limit our empathy to a news cycle or two, blocking out the very scary fact that life is neither fair nor predictable. None of us are immune from the trauma of random violence, tragedy, and suffering. In Lent, Jesus minces no words, not to threaten, not to coerce, but that we will become more intensely His. Do you think they were any guiltier than anyone else who lived in Jerusalem? Or anyone else who lives in Kiev? We need to repent when the suffering of others becomes their problem, their fault, and has nothing to do with me. We need to repent of taking our own survival as a sign of favor, or at least as the merited fruit of an ordered life. As Jonathan Swift said, it is remarkable with what Christian fortitude and resignation we can bear the sufferings of others. Catholics take this life seriously. We do not believe in reincarnation. This is not a rehearsal, not a drill, not a trial run. We are related to and accountable for one another. How we treat one another now, the compassion we show now, the persons we become here, are all that we bring with us beyond the grave. Our time here is finite and uncertain. Facing that fact squarely and with a sense of urgency is one of the great graces of Lent. As Pope Francis said a few Lents ago, this Lent we can consider, what do I have to do to draw nearer to the Lord, to convert myself, to cut out those things that are not good? Today, let each of us think, what must I do before this mercy of God who awaits me, who always forgives? What must I do? We can have great trust in God's mercy without abusing it. We must not justify spiritual laziness, but increase our commitment to respond promptly to this mercy with heartfelt sincerity. Each of us must feel addressed by this call and correct something in our lives, in our way of thinking, of behaving, and of living our relationships with others. Facing our own finitude and fragility reorders our priorities and teaches us wisdom. Love, truth, justice, human rights always cost something personal. They require our personal involvement and commitment. How much time I still spend worrying over things that don't matter at all, and licking wounds that would heal if only I'd stop picking at them. We are alive with the infinite and eternal love of God only if we are not afraid to spend ourselves, not afraid to die in order to hand on life to others. One of the joys of growing older is discovering how precious life is, how important it is to put time into relationships we care about, how important is the discretion to focus on what needs to be done, to do the next right thing, and to focus on what can be done. How important it is to nurture and care for people in their joys and sufferings, in their living and dying, while I can. Which brings us to the parable of the gardener. Yes, he will come to judge the living and the dead. He will look for fruit from each of us. Yes, every one of us could be cut down as useless, barren branches. This fearsome truth exists within the compassion of God revealed in Jesus. Remember when Mary Magdalene in the Gospel of John goes to the tomb. She mistakes Jesus for the gardener, but it is no mistake. The risen one has shared our sorrows and borne our grief. The risen one is among us, alive and present among us to nurture and fertilize and make humanity thrive. He has never given up on us, never despaired of any one of us. He still lovingly prunes us, hoping we will bear fruit that will last. Sir, leave it another year while I hoe it and manure it, then perhaps it will bear fruit. He wants you and I to be with him. He wants you and I to be more intensely his.